Okay,
All good to
awesome.
go?
One sec, please. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, we're good to go. Go right on ahead. Thank you.
All right. One second, let me get my notes up. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Jaqi, and I am a product designer, product design mercenary. I've been working in tech for over a decade now, and in crypto for 6 years, 7 years, which makes me an old timer. I kind of fell into this space working on a Bitcoin app when I knew absolutely nothing. Really started from ground zero. So I really understand like how challenging it can be to try to figure out how in the world to usability test some of these apps, especially when we're having to use a Web3 wallet to interact with them. There's tokens and other things of value being passed around. So I'm really excited to share some tips from what I've learned doing this for several years. A little bit about me. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been here for about a decade as well. First started working for really scrappy early stage startups and kind of a design generalist because of that. I know a lot of us are often the only designer on a product team, and so not only are we designing screens, but we're also responsible for testing the user experience, making sure that it's working well as designed. I'm also a Raid Guild mercenary. Raid Guild is a service DAO that builds Web3 apps. We are a collective, international, decentralized, over 100 members now of designers, developers, product people, community people, really anyone who can contribute to making a Web3 app awesome. So if you are looking for work, check out Raid Guild. We're always looking for new recruits. And I'm a pretty hardcore introvert. When I'm not hiding, playing a video game or reading a book on my own, I'm curating playlists for dance parties, which is one of the greatest loves of my life. And yeah, today I'm going to talk to you about how to usability test Web3 apps. This is one topic where I kind of get on my soapbox, especially in crews that aren't doing user testing. I found that in a lot of cryptocurrency projects or Web3 projects, testing is kind of an afterthought. Often it's a tech first, innovative tech solution first situation where designers are kind of brought in later on to make it better. Ideally, designers are involved from the very beginning, but we know it's not always how it goes. So yeah, I'm just here to preach the gospel of testing, why we should do it as often as possible. Some of the main reasons why we do this, why it's worth the project's time, it's to reduce risk, but really that's code word for saving the project money down the road. Ideally, we're testing our designs when they're in the prototype stage. We're testing a live build once it's been created. Maybe we've been usability testing an app that's already launched live. We haven't done any design work on it. Just brought in to help surface any issues. This kind of testing gives us a lot of insight of how to improve things, what the top problems are that we need to solve. And this insight helps the team prioritize. What are they going to spend their time building, fixing, improving on? And also can help you figure out what not to put time into. Sometimes a project has a really strong idea or gut feel, XYZ feature is going to add a lot of value. And in testing, we learn that people aren't really interested in it or probably won't use it. That's really valuable information to bring up to the team. And ultimately, it's about improving the user experience. We want to make these apps really easy to use, delightful to use, fun to use if we can. Thing I love about the Web3 space is pretty irreverent. We're using a lot of meme imagery, emojis, silliness. There's this playfulness to Web3 apps, and usability testing can help us find moments where we can insert some of that fun to bring some joy to someone's day. And from a product or business perspective, we're hoping that that brings them back, continue to use it over the long term. So in a way, we're like a shield for our team. We're a shield for the product. You know, if we are in a position where we can usability test our designs before they're built, we're kind of looking ahead, projecting or figuring out like what are potential problems that might come up and proactively solving them so that you don't get into a situation where someone's really annoyed or frustrated or rage quits the app. We can test clickable prototypes made in Figma. We could test paper prototypes, just sketches on paper, sketching out all your screens, taking photos of them, linking them together in Figma, and then giving that link to someone to test and try out and to learn from that. We can also test real apps, live apps. Could be just a development build that hasn't been launched yet. Could be something that's been out and launched for a while. Also, I want to say, I meant to mention this in the beginning. When I talk about usability testing, I'm frequently using the word user. And I know that not everybody loves that word because it sounds like, oh, these users are like in this laboratory and we're testing them. User is just shorthand for community member, customer, DAO member, human, delightful human of the world. I'm just going to use the word user for simplicity's sake. Here's an example of how low fidelity these prototypes can be when you test them. Could literally be scribbles on paper, linked together with an app like Figma or Marvel, and then putting it in front of somebody, either in person or virtually, and asking them to use it and seeing what they do with it. And the reality is that users are always testing apps. We're just usually not there to witness them using it. So my philosophy is that we should always be testing as often as we can, given the constraints of our own time or of a project's budget, or in the case of the hackathon, like how much time do we realistically have to test. Tests can be as simple as grabbing a friend who knows nothing about your project, pulling them aside, having them try your prototype, or having them try your app. Or it could be as deep as running a study with 10 or 20 people to really deep dive into how folks are using a particular feature set or how they're thinking about a certain aspect of your product. Preferably, you do testing before you launch to prevent things like this happening. Fails, explosions, your app going live with a ton of marketing power behind it, and then people get into it and realize they can't even use the thing. So we're trying to get ahead of that. We're trying to test all the parts before we launch. At the very least, the minimum, we're doing usability testing ourselves on a test build that our developer has made. But we really want to be doing it with people who know nothing about the product. And just like astronauts, we want to continue to test, run through our tests, even in flight. So once the thing is launched, we could test again. Once a new feature set has been built or hacked on, for the sake of an open source project, something new has been added, that would be a really great time to run a series of tests.
Vale, I finished now.
Always be testing. It's my motto. So yeah, these things can be in person or virtual. The way that I usually do it is on video call. So I'll set up like a Zoom. I know Zoom isn't a Web3 app, but I find it to be the best, most reliable app for screen share and recording usability sessions. So usually when I'll invite or recruit for people to usability test the app I'm designing for, I'll send them a calendar link with a Zoom link, in it, and that's where the tests will happen. Also in person, totally fun. If you're at a Web3 gathering, conference, anything like that, it could be another great opportunity to grab someone, say, hey, you got 5 minutes, can you try out this new feature I've designed? Let me know how it works for you, kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be complicated, it doesn't have to be super costly, it can be really scrappy. So really, we're just wanting to observe a person or a cat use the thing that we make. See how they do it. We're really trying to test our assumptions of how we think someone's going to use the thing. You know, as designers and developers, like, we have a lot of blind spots in the things that we make. We know how it works, and so we intuitively use the thing as it's supposed to work. I guarantee you that the first time you do a usability test on your app, somebody will use it in a way that you didn't expect or couldn't predict. So it is a very humbling experience, but a super valuable experience because of that. And when we're talking about Web3 apps, we know a lot of people are anonymous in this community. They don't feel comfortable being on video. Totally okay, they don't have to be. Really, the most important thing we want to do in these tests is see their screen. We want to see how they're using the thing. So it's about their face or about, what they're clicking on, what they're reading, where they are in the test. So my first tip for you is when you do these usability tests, ask for their consent to record. You'll have them screen share as they're going through the app or as they're going through your design, your prototype. And that will give you a record of what they did. And if you need to present or further explain to, say, your development team or your product team more about the issue, you can go back and play a clip of them struggling with that thing. And so video can be a really powerful tool for communicating the insights that you're gaining through this research, and saves you from having to take notes while you're talking to them. So at minimum, prep for a usability test is you need your learning goals. Ideally, you're involving your team in brainstorming. What do we want to learn? What flows are new, or what flows do we need to test? What things do we want to validate? You know, say an example of Uniswap, very first time, their learning goal might have been validate that somebody can swap ETH for DAI using this app. Could be as simple as that. Identify who you want to learn from. Doing a usability test on someone who's brand new to Web3 is very different from somebody who is a Web3 developer. They're already going to know how to use the Web3 wallet. They probably already got testnet coins. Like, they're super pro, so the questions you ask them should be very different from the questions that you're asking someone who's a total newbie. Maybe they've only collected ETH, they've never really done anything with that. So think deeply about who you want to learn from. Who's the target customer of your product or your solution, and what might their unique needs be. And come armed with your list of questions. This could be exploratory, open-ended, like, tell me about the last time you swapped ETH for another token. What tool did you use? How did that go for you? And then for it to be a true usability test, we want to find a task or identify a task that we want the person to complete using the app or your design. This is called task-based usability testing in the UX world. So we want to come up with something that we want to test, and a simple task that the user, the person, can do on their own without us prompting. So Postits on a wall could be a great way of collecting or ideating on questions and goals. You know, set up a figjam board Invite your developers on your team, your product people, your community people on the team to put up questions, things they're curious about learning from these different people. And of course, you need that task. All right, so once we are armed with our goals, our questions, and our task, and we've identified some people that we want to talk to and learn from, we'll get them on that video call or in person if that's an option for you. Hit record, ask for consent. You would think that in the Web3 space, a lot of people are anonymous, they'd be pretty resistant to recording, but I've found that if I just explain like, hey, this isn't going to be published anywhere, this is really just so I don't have to take notes, would it be okay with you if I record this session? I've never had somebody say no to that. So I just ask for their consent, let them know what's happening, hit record in Zoom, and then set off to ask your exploratory questions. Set the scene for them, let them know like, hey, I'm going to ask you to share your screen and I'm going to ask you to complete a task. I'm not testing you, I'm testing my design, and nothing you can say can ever hurt my feelings. That line is key for getting people to be brutally honest with you. If you just say, please be brutally honest, you're not going to hurt my feelings, or you could even make it anonymous, like, this isn't even in my design. Please just share what's confusing, what's problematic, what don't you get about this? And you give them the task, like using this app, make a swap from ETH to DAI, and then just be silent. Silently observe, note any issues. Where do they pause? Where did they get confused? Did they do something that you didn't expect? Did they encounter any errors? Did they feel anxious because there was no confirmation message after they went through a transaction? You're just a silent observer, and ideally don't give them hints. I've seen a lot of, especially like founders who are doing this kind of testing, or people who invented the idea, they really want to kind of demo, like, oh, and then you click here, and then you do that. We're not going to get very good data with that approach, so we want the person to do their best to do it on their own. And I'd say give them 5 minutes to do the thing on their own. If they're still stuck, maybe then give them a hint. So then we do these tests, we repeat as often, as frequently as we can, with as many people as we can, given the constraints of our time budget for the project. And we're looking for patterns in the data. This isn't about like solving every single problem that comes up in testing. It's about solving the most frequently experienced problems. So say one person is confused by a bit of terminology, but everybody else gets it. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to change that word, right? But if 2 or 3 people are all confused by that, that's a strong signal that you need to rethink that copy. You need to rethink what that button says, stuff like that. Figjams is a great tool for noting things that you've learned, grouping things into categories to identify those patterns. You might also share this with other members of your team. You may look a bit like Charlie here with all the strings connecting all of the different points. But really our goal in analysis is to consolidate all of the notes, all of the things we've learned into bite-sized chunks for our team to process. It's very tempting to want to give them all the data, give them all the recordings, all the notes. It's very unlikely that everyone on your team is going to read through all of that stuff or get the same insights that you have. So my goal is always to have an abridged, short and sweet insights presentation or some other visual, enticing document to communicate what were the top problems, what are the top recommendations for improving the user experience. If it's our own design, obviously it's easy. We've got our hit list. We've got our list of 10 things we want to improve in the prototype. Sometimes, like, if I've done a couple tests and it becomes obvious, like, oh, this pattern's really not working, I might revise the prototype before the next test. Sharing insights, sharing that knowledge, super important, super valuable. If all the user insight is stored in our minds, like, there's only so much that can be done with it. Like, if I roll off a project, future project members aren't going to be able to benefit from that knowledge. So short and sweet slide decks are great. Playing clips from interviews can be really great, helpful for communicating how someone's struggling with a thing. And making just prioritized lists. Prioritize list of bugs to fix if it's a live app. Prioritize list of features to consider for your product manager. All right, so that was like an introduction to usability testing in general. Now, what's different about usability testing in Web3? Web3 is a bit more technically complex, right? We're dealing with Web3 wallets and generally moving tokens around. We're assigning transactions that may have a cost to them. And in the beginning, very, very early days when I was testing this Bitcoin app, I was like, I don't want to spend real Bitcoin. I didn't understand that there's such a thing as a test network, or a testnet for short. So developers will build on a testnet which is like a copy of the blockchain that you're building on, in order to be able to test all of the various transactions that you might do, buying a thing, swapping one coin for another, minting NFTs, whatever it is. Do it all on testnet, cost you nothing. So in usability testing Web3 apps, we need to get ourselves some testnet coins, some magic internet money that is totally free. If you're testing a Web3 app that you're like adding on to, you're working on, you're going to want to find out what test network it's built on. Rinkeby is a really popular one, Kovan, there's a bunch of others, depending on the token that you're building with, Ethereum or something else, and whatever test network your dev builds, you gotta get the link to that test build and know what test network it is so that you can get the appropriate testnet coins from the faucet. So for those who aren't familiar, a faucet is just a tool that will give you free testnet coins. So you'll want to get those testnet coins in your wallet and go to the test app, and then you can do basically a limited number of transactions, test all of the flows. Don't just stop at the UI that you've built. Actually try using it with your Web3 wallet, making sure that confirmation messages are working properly, or if there are any missing, like, you can note that, give recommendations to your dev to add those. Faucet.paradigm.xyz is a great place to get testnet coins, because you can plug in your Web3 wallet and it will rain down tokens on 8 different test networks. So all of the popular ones, including like an Optimism test network, Polygon, Arbitrum, and others. If you can't find the token or the chain on there that you need, you can just Google it. There's a lot of dev resources out there, a lot of faucets for developers, or just ask your dev to send you some. I'm sure they have a hoard of testnet coins because they have been testing the build this whole time. And it feels pretty great to be a testnet millionaire. I'll never forget the first time I was gifted testnet coins by my Bitcoin friends, and I was like, just to see like a millionaire of Bitcoin, test Bitcoin millionaire. Pretty fun. But really it's just, a tool to help you test without worrying about sending any of your funds accidentally. So that's basics of how to use a testnet DApp on a test network. So the formula is basically the same. Regular usability tests. We got our learning goals, our questions, our tasks. Got to get those willing participants. Could be friends. Ideally, it's somebody who fits the profile of who you're trying to learn from. Ask them to do the task over screen share, record, observe, note where they're getting stuck, analyze the top problems, and present those results to your team. If you've never used an app on testnet, an easy one to try is Uniswap. If you go to app.uniswap.org and you switch your wallet to Kovan, you can swap ETH for Uni. Be a simple one to try. If you've never used a testnet before, you should see a toggle in your wallet of choice for testnets, and you'll need to switch from Ethereum network to Kovan, etc. in your wallet. In MetaMask, now there's a setting you have to toggle on to enable that. So if you go to Setting Advanced, turn on test networks, you'll then see that list available. And if you're still nervous about accidentally sending real ETH, you can always spin up a fake, a test wallet just for testing purposes, collect all your testnet coins in there, and just use that so you don't have that anxiety. Yeah, so as designers who are running usability tests for Web3 apps, we can provide value in a lot of ways. Surfacing top problems our customers or community members are having with the thing, finding bugs, finding flaws in our own designs, helping save the team money. Like, worst case scenarios, we designed a thing and it doesn't really work, but thousands of dollars went into building the thing, or hundreds of hours went into building the thing, and then we're like, oh crap, we gotta change it. So in the best case scenario, we're testing our prototypes with people who aren't on our team. We're testing the build before it launches, and then we're testing after it has launched. Some tips for maximizing your time. Everyone's short on time. It's hard to get people on a video call. Get their Web3 wallet ahead of time. Send them testnet coins. If they've never switched to a testnet before, give them instructions for how to do that in their wallet of choice. Working with a partner is also great. You can have one person on the call who's leading the line of questioning, the other person taking notes or commenting with follow-up questions. That can be a really great way of two minds observing different things, possibly getting even more value out of the time that you have with the people that you're testing with. And don't forget to hit record. If you have consent, you can go back through, rewatch the video. I find that I'm relearning things after watching the video that I wasn't able to note down in my notes, or I've forgotten immediately after. So this video recording is super valuable. Highly recommend. And you'll feel like a superhero once you know how to do this and you feel confident being able to use testnets and support your development team, future development team with testing to get ahead of issues. Thanks y'all for being here for this lightning talk on usability testing. I love talking about this stuff. Free to reach out to me on the internet if you have further curiosities about this stuff. Citrine Labs is my design studio. I do my product design work out of. You can sign up for the newsletter, and I'll send out free resources and other helpful web design, product design content. Also invite y'all to join web3designers.org, Web3 Designers community. We have a Discord. We have a designer directory and a gig board. And our mission is to help connect designers with gigs in Web3 and crypto, to share resources, share learning opportunities, earning opportunities. So please join us there. And if you're interested in joining a service DAO, doing design or other work to design and create apps, go to raidville.org. You can apply as an apprentice, and we have like a 2-week program where you can try it out and see if you like it. And if you become a member, there will be a steady flow of opportunities, freelance, part-time opportunities for you to continue gaining experience. Yeah, that's it for me. Let's connect on social. Jacqueline Lene, pretty much everywhere. And so I have 1 minute left if anybody has a question to ask.
Yeah, I have a question. Any advice on how to define the best moment to start testing? I was thinking like maybe at some point it's too early to start.
That's a great question.
Is that a risk?
I don't think it's ever a bad idea to test. I mean, it depends on how much time you have, right? So if it's a passion project and you have a lot of time to give, I'd say test as soon as you have a first iteration of your design in a prototype. Like I showed those sketches. I've done some light testing on just hand-drawn sketches to learn some things. Obviously if you're testing a live app and it's not functional yet, that might not be very useful. Or if they can't click through all of the flows that you want to, it's not very useful. But yeah, I think it's never a bad idea to get your design in front of people. You'll learn something. You might learn that it works, it's working fine. Or you might learn that there is a flow missing that you haven't thought of yet. My thought there. And defining a flow to test, I guess it depends on what you're working on. If it's a product that is trying to earn revenue, make money, so that you can continue building, I would test the thing that is bringing in revenue, like the core flow. For example, with Uniswap, it's exchanging one token for another. That might be a good place to start. But if that has already been tested, validating it's working, and there's something brand new that's been added, like staking rewards, then that could be a testing sprint, where you talk to 5 to 7 people, ask them to go through that flow. We've even done some usability testing on experimental concepts that we're not even sure we want to build. Like if the product team has an idea for a thing and it's like, oh, this is kind of edgy or different, or having kind of a different problem, I don't know how people are going to react to this. You could make a prototype, get it in front of people as if it were a real thing, have them click through it and just gauge their reaction. So yeah, there's always something we can learn.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jaqi. Sorry, Nate, are you done with the questions? Because I can see someone dropped a question. Fire friend. Are you done with your question, Nate?
Yep, I'm done.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So there's a question for you here, Jaqi, from Fire Friend. Done a lot of user testing in Web2, moderated and unmoderated, and over the years discovered that many users don't act exactly like how they would do at home, especially some specific key moments when there is something at stake, e.g. checkout flow with user paying with their own money, are quite hard to emulate. Since a lot of Web3 products are in essence directly or indirectly guiding user interaction around financial value. I'm wondering if you can share some concrete techniques or tactics you are using to make sure the critical context is not lost. As you mentioned, everyone feels like a millionaire on testnet.
Yeah, totally. I hear that. Yeah, with Web3 apps, there's a lot more at stake. A lot of these transactions are costly. Like gas could be $20 to do a thing. There could be a lot of resistance to doing the thing in the moment. I think it's a really important question to ask, and I wish we had better tools to track what people are doing in the moment. Like in the Web 2 world, we have things like Hotjar. And I suppose you could use Hotjar for a Web3 app if the team is comfortable with, dropping cookies on people's browsers. I know that's kind of a testy topic for some due to privacy reasons, but with a tool like Hotjar, there's others, you could watch recordings. Like you could see when people are rage quitting. You can see what screen were they on, what were they just doing before that, and could kind of piece together okay, a lot of people are rage quitting here in this moment. What's going on there? You can kind of dig in to that. Customer support tickets are also a really useful place to farm some of this feedback, to understand like what are the most stress causing moments, because sometimes people will like write into like a peer support channel or just someone like, hey, am I doing this right? Like, is this working? Or either like out of frustration, like I just lost $50 in ETH, I did XYZ thing, what's going on? So that's another place where we can kind of farm insight to identify like what parts of the flow are causing pain or causing issues. Yeah, if anyone else has experience or thoughts on that,
Fair friend,
sure.
I hope that okay, yeah. So Fair friend says, thanks for your answer. It's hard, I know. Thank you, Jaqi.
Yeah. You're so welcome. Thanks y'all for being here.
Thank you. Okay, so we're about to get to the last talk for the night. Oh, it's night at my end, I'm sorry. So yeah, let me